Why do intelligent people repeatedly make the same mistakes? Why do successful people suddenly destroy their own lives? Why do relationships fail, trust disappear, and emotions often control decisions more than logic? The answer lies in a force that most people never truly understand: human nature. In this complete summary of the laws of human nature by Robert Greene, you'll discover why people behave the way they do, how hidden motives influence every interaction, and how understanding psychology can help you make better decisions, build stronger relationships, and avoid manipulation. This isn't about controlling others. It's about first learning to understand yourself. Because until you recognize the unconscious patterns shaping your own behavior, you'll continue repeating them without realizing it. If you want to become more self-aware, emotionally intelligent, and impossible to manipulate, then you're about to begin one of the most valuable journeys into the human mind. Let's explore the timeless laws that quietly shape every person, every relationship, and every decision we make. Before we can understand other people, we must first understand ourselves. This is the central idea of the laws of human nature. Robert Greene argues that the greatest obstacle to success isn't a lack of intelligence, talent, or opportunity. It's our inability to recognize the invisible forces driving our own behavior. Most people believe they act rationally, but in reality, emotions quietly influence nearly every decision they make. Think about the last time you made a decision you later regretted. Perhaps you spoke in anger, trusted the wrong person, ignored good advice, or reacted emotionally instead of logically. At the time, your actions probably felt justified. Only later did you realize that your emotions, not your reasoning, were in control. According to Robert Greene, this happens because every human being carries unconscious emotional patterns that shape thoughts and behavior without being noticed. The first law of human nature is learning to master your emotional self. Emotions are not your enemy. They help you survive, connect with others, and respond to challenges. The problem begins when emotions take control without your awareness. Fear can make opportunities look dangerous. Anger can turn small disagreements into lifelong conflicts. Envy can make someone else's success feel like your own failure. Pride can prevent you from admitting mistakes that could change your life. The first step toward self-mastery is learning to pause before reacting. Most people live in a constant cycle of stimulus and response. Something happens, and they immediately react. They become offended, defensive, excited, or impulsive without giving themselves time to think. Truly self-aware people break this pattern. They create space between emotion and action. In that space, better decisions become possible. Robert Greene explains that emotional intelligence begins with observation. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" first ask, "What am I feeling right now?" Simply naming your emotion often weakens its control. Once you recognize anger, fear, insecurity, or frustration, you regain the ability to think clearly instead of reacting automatically. Another important lesson is that every person sees the world through personal experiences, beliefs, and hidden biases. Two people can witness the same event and interpret it completely differently. This is why arguments often continue even when both sides believe they're right. Human beings rarely see reality exactly as it is. We see reality through the filter of our emotions and past experiences. The book also reminds us that our ego constantly tries to protect our self-image. We naturally notice information that supports our beliefs while ignoring evidence that challenges them. This psychological habit makes growth difficult because it convinces us that the problem is always someone else. Real growth begins when we become willing to question ourselves before judging others. One of the most powerful skills you can develop is becoming an observer of your own mind. Watch your reactions. Notice your habits. Pay attention to the situations that trigger strong emotions. The more you understand your own patterns, the less control those patterns have over you. This journey isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming emotionally aware. Your emotions become valuable advisors instead of dangerous masters. When you master yourself first, you're far less likely to be manipulated by fear, anger, pride, or impulsive decisions. As these ideas begin to take shape, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Understanding human nature always begins with understanding your own. Only then can you clearly recognize the hidden motivations, emotional patterns, and behaviors of the people around you. In the next part, We'll explore why every person wears a social mask, what lies beneath that carefully constructed image, and how learning to see beyond appearances can completely transform the way you understand human behavior. In the previous part, we learned that mastering yourself is the foundation of understanding human nature. But Robert Greene argues that there's another reason people are so difficult to understand. Almost everyone wears a mask. From childhood, we learn to present ourselves in ways that gain acceptance and avoid rejection. We smile when we're frustrated, hide our fears behind confidence, and sometimes pretend to agree simply to fit in. Over time, this social mask becomes so familiar that many people forget where the mask ends and their authentic personality begins. This doesn't necessarily make people dishonest. It's simply part of human nature. We all adjust our behavior depending on the situation. We speak differently with family than we do with coworkers. We behave differently in public than we do when we're alone. The problem begins when we judge people only by the image they choose to display instead of paying attention to their consistent patterns of behavior. Robert Greene explains that actions reveal far more than words. Anyone can promise loyalty, honesty, or kindness, but character is revealed through repeated actions over time. A person who constantly breaks promises, blames others for mistakes, or changes values whenever it's convenient is quietly showing you who they really are. Learning to observe behavior instead of believing appearances is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Another important lesson is that people often communicate more through body language than through words. A brief hesitation before answering, avoiding eye contact, crossed arms, nervous movements, changes in facial expression, or sudden shifts in tone can reveal emotions that words attempt to hide. This doesn't mean every gesture has a secret meaning. But when verbal messages and nonverbal signals consistently contradict each other, it's worth paying closer attention. The book also introduces the idea that every person has a shadow, the hidden side of their personality. These are the qualities, emotions, and desires that people suppress because they believe society won't accept them. Anger, envy, pride, insecurity, or the desire for control may remain hidden for years, yet they often appear during moments of stress, success, failure, or conflict. This is why people sometimes surprise us. Someone who appears calm may suddenly become aggressive under pressure. Someone who seems humble may become arrogant after gaining power. These changes don't happen overnight. They reveal aspects of personality that were already present but carefully hidden beneath the surface. Robert Greene encourages us not to ignore these moments. Instead of making excuses for repeated unhealthy behavior, observe the pattern. Human nature is revealed through consistency, not isolated events. One mistake doesn't define a person, but repeated actions usually expose their true character. The same principle applies to ourselves. We all have a shadow. Instead of pretending it doesn't exist, acknowledge it honestly. Recognizing your impatience, jealousy, fear, or need for approval doesn't make you weaker. It makes you more self-aware. The qualities we refuse to recognize within ourselves often control us the most. Another valuable lesson is to become a patient observer. Modern life encourages quick judgments. We often decide whether we trust or dislike someone within minutes of meeting them. Robert Greene warns that first impressions can be misleading. Give people enough time to reveal themselves naturally. Watch how they treat those who cannot benefit them. Observe how they respond to criticism, failure, and success. Character is tested most clearly when life becomes difficult. As you begin looking beyond appearances, you'll notice something remarkable. Human behavior becomes far more predictable than it first seems. Patterns begin to replace assumptions. Observation replaces emotion, and understanding replaces impulsive judgment. In the next part, we'll explore one of the most powerful forces shaping human behavior, our constant desire for status, recognition, and validation, and why understanding this hidden motivation can completely change the way you communicate, build relationships, and influence the people around you. As we've discovered, people often hide their true emotions behind carefully crafted social masks. But beneath those masks lies another powerful force that silently shapes almost every human interaction, the desire for status. Robert Greene explains that whether we admit it or not, every person wants to feel respected, valued, and significant. This desire isn't limited to wealth, fame, or power. It exists in every workplace, every friendship, every family, and every social group. People constantly compare themselves with others, searching for signs that they are appreciated, admired, or important. The problem begins when this natural desire turns into obsession. Instead of focusing on personal growth, many people become trapped in endless comparison. Someone else's promotion feels like your failure. Another person's success creates jealousy instead of inspiration. Recognition becomes more important than purpose, and slowly, your happiness depends on how others perceive you. Robert Greene reminds us that this invisible competition often controls behavior without people realizing it. Many arguments aren't really about the issue being discussed. They're about pride. Many conflicts aren't caused by facts. They're caused by wounded egos. When someone's status feels threatened, logic often disappears, and emotions take control. This is why emotionally intelligent people learn to recognize the ego, not only in others, but also in themselves. Before reacting, ask yourself a simple question: am I defending the truth, or am I defending my pride? That one question has the power to prevent countless unnecessary conflicts. Another important lesson from the book is that people naturally crave recognition. Everyone wants to feel heard, understood, and appreciated. When you genuinely listen, acknowledge someone's efforts, and treat them with respect, you build trust far more effectively than through arguments or persuasion. People rarely remember every word you say, but they always remember how you made them feel. This doesn't mean offering empty compliments or manipulating emotions. Robert Greene encourages authentic respect. Notice people's strengths. Appreciate sincere effort. Give credit where it's deserved. These simple actions create stronger relationships because they satisfy one of the deepest psychological needs in human nature. The book also warns against becoming addicted to external validation. If your confidence depends entirely on praise from others, your emotional stability will always remain fragile. Some people will admire you. Others will criticize you. If you allow every opinion to control your self-worth, you'll spend your life chasing approval instead of building genuine confidence. Real confidence comes from self-awareness, competence, and integrity. It grows quietly through discipline, learning, and keeping promises to yourself. Unlike temporary praise, this kind of confidence cannot easily be taken away because it isn't built on public opinion. It is built on personal character. Another powerful observation is that people reveal their true character when they gain authority or influence. Power doesn't usually change who someone is. It exposes qualities that were already there. A kind person often becomes more generous. An insecure person may become controlling. A humble person remains willing to learn, while an arrogant person begins believing they can never be wrong. For this reason, Robert Greene advises us to pay close attention to how people treat those who have nothing to offer them. Observe how they speak to employees, strangers, service workers, or anyone from whom they expect no personal benefit. These moments often reveal far more about character than public appearances ever could. The same lesson applies to us. Instead of seeking status through comparison, seek excellence through continuous improvement. When your focus shifts from proving yourself to improving yourself, your confidence becomes stronger, your relationships become healthier, and your decisions become wiser. At this point, a clear pattern begins to emerge. Human beings are driven not only by logic, but also by emotion, pride, recognition, and the desire to feel significant. Understanding these hidden motivations allows you to communicate with greater wisdom, avoid unnecessary conflict, and build stronger, more meaningful relationships. In the next part, we'll explore why envy, aggression, and hidden insecurities influence human behavior far more than most people realize, and how recognizing these forces can protect you from manipulation while helping you respond with greater emotional intelligence. As we've learned, human behavior is often driven by hidden emotions rather than conscious logic. Among all these emotions, Robert Greene identifies one of the most dangerous and one of the most difficult to recognize: envy. Unlike anger or fear, envy rarely announces itself openly. It hides behind criticism, false praise, sarcasm, and quiet resentment, making it one of the most destructive forces in human relationships. Most people will never admit they are envious. Instead, they convince themselves that someone else's success was undeserved or unfair. They begin finding faults in people they once admired. They celebrate others' failures more than their own achievements. This is because envy isn't really about another person's success. It's about our own feelings of insecurity and comparison. Robert Greene explains that comparison is deeply rooted in human nature. We naturally measure ourselves against friends, coworkers, classmates, neighbors, and even strangers. While healthy competition can inspire growth, constant comparison slowly steals peace of mind. No matter how much you achieve, there will always be someone who appears more successful, wealthier, smarter, or more influential. The solution isn't to stop appreciating success. It's to stop measuring your worth by someone else's achievements. When another person's victory becomes a source of inspiration instead of resentment, you free yourself from one of the most toxic emotional traps. The book also explores another hidden force that influences behavior: aggression. Many people imagine aggression as shouting or physical violence, but in everyday life, it often appears in much quieter forms. It can be passive-aggressive comments, constant criticism, subtle insults, manipulation, or the silent treatment. People who struggle to express their emotions honestly often allow frustration to leak out through these indirect behaviors. Instead of reacting emotionally, Robert Greene advises us to observe the pattern behind a behavior. Ask yourself what emotion may be driving the person's actions. Are they feeling ignored, threatened, insecure, jealous? Understanding the emotional source doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it helps you respond with wisdom instead of impulse. Another important lesson is learning to recognize chronic insecurity. Ironically, people who constantly seek attention, power, or approval are often trying to hide deep feelings of inadequacy. Some become arrogant to cover insecurity. Others constantly seek praise because they don't believe they're valuable without external validation. This understanding changes the way we see people. Instead of reacting only to surface behavior, we begin noticing the emotional needs hidden beneath it. Compassion becomes easier when we realize that many negative behaviors are rooted in fear rather than confidence. Robert Greene also warns us about emotional contagion. Emotions spread from one person to another more quickly than most people realize. Spend enough time around angry people, and you'll begin feeling more irritated. Stay surrounded by negativity, and your own mindset slowly changes. On the other hand, calm, disciplined, and optimistic people often inspire those around them simply through their presence. For this reason, choose your environment carefully. The people you spend the most time with quietly shape your thinking, your emotions, and eventually your character. Protecting your emotional environment is just as important as protecting your physical health. The book also encourages us to practice empathy, not as weakness, but as strength. Empathy means making a sincere effort to understand another person's perspective before judging them. It doesn't mean agreeing with every action. It means recognizing that every individual is shaped by different experiences, fears, ambitions, and struggles. This ability allows you to communicate more effectively, resolve conflicts peacefully, and build deeper trust. As these lessons come together, a powerful realization begins to emerge. The greatest influence doesn't come from controlling other people. It comes from understanding them. When you recognize the hidden emotions driving behavior, you become less reactive, more patient, and far more difficult to manipulate. In the next part, we'll explore how mastering your own character, maintaining emotional balance, and understanding timeless patterns of human behavior can help you build stronger relationships, make wiser decisions, and navigate life with confidence and clarity. As we approach the final lessons of the laws of human nature, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The greatest power you'll ever gain isn't the ability to control other people. It's the ability to control yourself. Robert Greene explains that the people who create lasting success, build strong relationships, and earn genuine respect are those who understand their own nature before attempting to understand anyone else's. One of the most valuable qualities you can develop is self-awareness. Most people spend their lives analyzing the actions of others while rarely examining themselves. They notice other people's flaws but remain blind to their own habits, emotional triggers, and recurring mistakes. Real growth begins the moment you become willing to observe yourself with complete honesty. Ask yourself difficult questions. What situations make you lose control? What criticism hurts you the most? Why do certain people immediately frustrate you while others inspire you? The answers to these questions often reveal the hidden emotional patterns that influence your behavior every single day. Robert Greene reminds us that everyone carries weaknesses. The difference is that wise people acknowledge them instead of pretending they don't exist. Accepting your imperfections doesn't make you weak. It gives you the opportunity to improve them. The flaws we refuse to recognize usually become the ones that quietly control our decisions. Another important lesson is learning to separate temporary emotions from permanent decisions. Every person experiences moments of anger, disappointment, excitement, and fear. These emotions are natural, but they should never become the foundation for major life choices. Many broken relationships, failed careers, and lifelong regrets begin with decisions made during moments of emotional intensity. The ability to pause before acting is one of the greatest signs of maturity. A few moments of reflection can prevent years of unnecessary consequences. Instead of asking, "How do I feel right now?" ask, "What decision will I still respect a year from today?" This simple habit strengthens judgment and reduces impulsive mistakes. The book also emphasizes the importance of adaptability. Human nature doesn't exist in isolation. The world changes, people change, and circumstances constantly evolve. Those who refuse to learn or adapt often become trapped by their own rigid thinking. On the other hand, people who remain curious, humble, and open-minded continue growing throughout their lives. Adaptability doesn't mean abandoning your values. It means remaining flexible enough to respond wisely to new situations. Strong principles combined with an open mind create resilience, the ability to remain steady even during uncertainty. Another timeless lesson is the value of patience. Human behavior follows patterns that reveal themselves over time. Many people rush to judge others after one conversation or one experience. Robert Greene encourages the opposite approach. Observe patiently. Listen more than you speak. Allow people enough time to reveal their true character through consistent actions rather than isolated moments. This same patience should also be applied to your own personal growth. Meaningful change rarely happens overnight. Developing emotional intelligence, stronger character, and wiser judgment requires daily practice. Every moment of self-control, every thoughtful decision, and every honest reflection becomes another step toward mastering your own nature. Perhaps the most powerful message in this book is that understanding human nature should make you wiser, not more cynical. The goal isn't to become suspicious of everyone or assume the worst in people. The goal is to understand reality clearly while choosing compassion, wisdom, and emotional balance over impulsive reactions. When you understand yourself, you communicate more effectively. When you understand others, you build healthier relationships. And when you combine both, you develop the rare ability to navigate life with confidence, patience, and clarity. As all these lessons come together, a remarkable picture begins to emerge. Human nature isn't something to fear. It's something to understand. The better you understand it, the better you understand yourself, the people around you, and the choices that shape your future. In the final part, we'll bring together every major lesson from the laws of human nature and discover why mastering human nature may be one of the most valuable skills anyone can develop in a lifetime. We've reached the end of our journey through the laws of human nature, and if there's one lesson this book leaves us with, it's this. The greatest challenge you'll ever face isn't understanding the world, it's understanding yourself. Throughout this summary, we've discovered that human behavior is driven by invisible forces that most people never recognize. Emotions quietly influence decisions, pride distorts judgment, envy creates hidden conflict, and the desire for status often shapes our actions more than logic. Until we become aware of these patterns, they continue controlling our lives without our permission. Robert Greene reminds us that true wisdom begins with self-awareness. The more honestly you examine your own thoughts, emotions, habits, and weaknesses, the less power they have over you. Every moment of reflection strengthens your judgment. Every act of self-control builds your character. Every lesson you learn about yourself becomes a foundation for understanding others. We've also learned that appearances can be deceiving. People often wear social masks, hide their insecurities, and communicate far more through their actions than their words. Instead of judging quickly, observe patiently. Character is revealed over time through consistent behavior, especially during moments of pressure, failure, success, and uncertainty. Another timeless lesson is that emotional intelligence is one of the greatest advantages anyone can develop. Intelligence may help you solve problems, but emotional intelligence helps you solve conflicts, build trust, strengthen relationships, and make wiser decisions. The ability to remain calm when others become emotional is a form of strength that cannot be measured by titles, wealth, or status. The book also teaches us that understanding human nature should never become an excuse for manipulation. Its purpose is awareness, not control. When you understand why people think, feel, and behave the way they do, you become more patient, more compassionate, and more capable of responding wisely instead of reacting impulsively. Knowledge without character creates manipulation, but knowledge guided by integrity creates wisdom. Perhaps the most important message of this book is that every person, including ourselves, is a work in progress. We all carry strengths, weaknesses, fears, ambitions, and hidden emotions. Instead of pretending to be perfect, we should commit ourselves to lifelong learning and continuous self-improvement. The goal isn't to eliminate human nature. It's to understand it well enough that it no longer unconsciously controls our lives. As Robert Greene repeatedly suggests, lasting influence doesn't come from forcing people to change. It comes from understanding them, respecting reality, and mastering your own behavior first. When you control your emotions, observe more than you judge, and respond with wisdom instead of impulse, you naturally become someone others trust and respect. In the end, The Laws of Human Nature is far more than a book about psychology. It is a guide to becoming more self-aware, emotionally intelligent, and thoughtful in every area of life. It reminds us that the better we understand ourselves, the better we understand others, and the wiser our choices become. Thank you for joining me on this complete journey through the laws of human nature. If you remember only one lesson from this book, let it be this. Your greatest strength is not the ability to control other people. It is the ability to understand yourself, master your emotions, and choose wisdom over impulse every single day. When you master your own nature, you gain the power to build stronger relationships, make better decisions, and create a life guided by clarity, purpose, and lasting character.